Ready for the show? I'm ready to start.
10, 9, ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Roger, we got a roll from
Tower cleared.
Roger, roll.
First time on Earth, there is a technological intelligence reaching for the stars.
My fellow listeners, now I present to you E.T. First Contact Radio, starring our wonderful host, Martin Horst.
Yes, greetings my dear friends from all over the world. This is Martin Horst speaking indeed on E.T. First Contact Radio on this beautiful station, Finding Voices Radio, with the latest galactic news. And I have two very special people on the program today. Joanne Summerscales and, of course, Bill Brooks. And they are two wonderful people from the UK that I have been in contact with for some time now. And I would like to start with Joanne to explain who she is and what she has done with the MS project and the project of the ET Newsroom. And then we'll ask Bill about his experiences. So welcome both.
Thank you. Thanks, Martin. It's lovely to be here. Thanks for having us both on. Really appreciate it.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
It's an honor.
So I just thought perhaps I'll give you a quick brief overview of what I've been doing for the last kind of 5 years. And I started a project called the AMASH project, which is AMMACH. And that stands for Anomalous Mind Management Abductee Contactee Helpline, because I also still provide a dedicated mobile phone number for experiences. So the project, the AMASH project, is all about really documenting what experiences are going through, talking to researchers as well, and getting an overview on this information here. Now, it's the first time in the UK that there was such a dedicated project, if you like. But although it was specifically orientated at the UK, in fact, loads of people from around the world began contacting me, which was wonderful. So essentially what I've done for the last 5 or so years is interview experiences on camera and radio, in fact. And then December 2015, the website, amash.co.uk, had experiencing extreme hacking. So, you know, someone was trying to close me down, big style. And they did succeed in one avenue, and that was they took the website. So because the website was being hacked with backdoor porn, that was horrible. And I didn't want to pollute the ethers with that. So we basically closed it down. And so I'm taking a little bit of a break whilst I regroup and reformulate. There's lots of things going on. But I'm coming back under the banner of the ET Newsroom. There is a website, etnewsroom.com, and that is under construction currently. But the way that I met up with Bill Brooks, because our association has brought together a book, which is the culmination, it's a social document about his experiences, is that in 2012, Bill contacted me through AMASH because he'd had a week of extensive ill health involving heart attacks, multiple, and strokes. and he thought he was going to die and didn't want to die with his story essentially untold, because it is one of the most extraordinary stories I've ever heard. But that's a little bit about me. So I'm based in the UK, in the southeast at the moment, and people can still contact me on the helpline, and perhaps we can put that up at some point, and they can still contact me through the Amash Hotmail, email address, which is amash@hotmail.co.uk, and there is an info@the etnewsroom.com if anybody wants to contact me to speak about their experiences. But I'd really love Bill to come on now and just really give us an overview of his early life, because it's interesting. He's an ordinary man coming from an impoverished background in the West Midlands of the UK, essentially the Stourbridge area, in fact, very near where Robert Plant used to live. So Bill, tell us about your early life.
Joanne, could you carry on for 2 minutes, please? Just
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Bill has also not been very well recently, folks. And one thing I will just say is that he's been suffering with intense pain in the head facial area. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because the pain was enormous all over. So it was very difficult to find the focal point. But now the pain has polarized, and very interestingly, he said, you know what, Joanne, it is actually at the site where I had an implant come out many years ago. And that area has become intensely inflamed and painful. And hopefully Bill's incredible willpower is sorting it. But it is taking a long time, and it's taking its toll. So if we can just bear with Bill too, because the pain has been incredible, and he's also just had a major family bereavement. So excuse us if we're a little bit all over the place, folks. So as I said, Bill came from a very impoverished background and virtually had zero education. I think he had about 6 months as a little kiddywink, and then maybe at 13 years old, another 6 months, because the parents thought, well, he must have something, and try and put him in for an 11 plus, an intermediary exam.
Joanne, I'm back.
Okay, all right. So I've just said that you had virtually no education, a couple of times at school for 6 months, but I haven't gone into your background in your early years, your dad being in the army, and I just think that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I'll start off from an early age when, now I think maybe all this happened. I'm not really sure. I've had a lifetime of it, so going back that far, I'm not too sure about. I was only a child. But I was brought up for the first 3 years by a Nazi. He was a lovely man. Don't get me wrong, when I say Nazi, the reason he was a Nazi was because he was drafted into the SS when he was 15 or 16, and he was caught at 17 and a half in France. He parachuted into France and was caught there, and that's how he ended up a prisoner of war. He'd only just joined up, so everyone in those days relied on Hitler to tell them everything, so you can't really blame him for what he was, because there was lots of people like him that were fooled into believing that Hitler was great and all that, which at that time they'd got nothing, so they, but I grew up with him, and he was a lovely man. No, nothing like a Nazi you'd think of a Nazi. I grew up also with a cousin who was actually murdered by the Masons, Freemasons. I know that for a fact because he told me before he was murdered he was going to be, and he was murdered in the way that I was told he would be. At 3 years old, I was living in a place that had been bombed, quite heavily bombed, where we lived. And I was sitting in a Jeep that a very rich aunt that I had, because we were not very well off, but we had a rich aunt, and she bought me a Jeep, which I was in, and I saw above me a cylinder-type object. I was found three streets away on a bomb site type thing in my Jeep an hour later or a couple of hours later. I don't exactly know how long later. Then I'll carry on to when I was 10.
I mean, that was your first experience, wasn't it? That you remembered after the download, which we'll come to a bit later. But Also, just to say that you were brought up by your uncle, who was the Nazi, because he married one of your aunts.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't like your normal...
No, but just to say that was sort of the family connection there.
A lot of people have connected Nazis to UFOs and stuff like that. I don't make any connections. All I do is say what happened to me. I have no idea what it was about. I'm just telling you what happened, you know. I was 5 years old, and we've moved house by now. When I was just over 3, we moved house, and I had a death experience then as well as the last one I had. I've had 2 death experiences now. That was the first one I ever had when I was about 5, and I was gassed by a heater. It was a wicked heater with a wick. We hadn't got much heating in those days. It was just after the war, and I was gassed by this heater, and it actually killed me. They had to pull my tongue back out my throat because my tongue went down my throat. They had to pull it out, and it split my tongue in half. I've got a split in the middle of my tongue now, down the front of it. That was when I was 5. So now I'm coming up to about 9 to 10 years old, and I'm living in a place where I've got woods and fields, a beautiful place. Joanne's seen the place; it was a beautiful place. I'm living there, and I'm there most of the day. I don't even go to school. You see, I don't go to school because I've got a disabled brother who needs help from my mother, and I had to look after my sister who was younger than me. So I didn't go to school. I looked after the house and my sister, and every chance I could, I was off to the woods, fields, canals, and rivers where I lived. It was a beautiful place. One day I was about between 9 and 10. I must have been 10. I think I was 10, but I'll say between 9 and 10. I used to lie in a cornfield. Sometimes I used to go into a cornfield and lie there. And I'm lying in the cornfield one day, and I'm looking up, watching the clouds, making shapes from the clouds. And I see a large, about 8 foot round, 6 to 8 foot round, large white, what I took as a balloon shape, round like a balloon, going over my head as I'm watching, as I'm looking. The next thing I know, I see another one come over my head as well. There was 2, and they were spinning around each other. Well, they joined each other and then started spinning around each other in different spinning motions. I watched them go to the other side of the field and disappear. They just disappeared as such. As far as I could see, they disappeared. And I'm looking, I'm now standing up to look at what's going on. And I find myself in the middle of what we now call, in those days, I don't think anyone knew what a crop circle was. I do now, that's why I know it was a crop circle. And I'm in the mid. Well, I'm not in the middle. I'm in.
I think it's quite interesting. I don't know whether we've just lost Bill there for a second, because Bill is the only person I've ever come across who is actually in a crop circle as it was being made. And hello, are you back? I was just saying you're the first person that I've ever heard of who has actually been in a crop circle as it was being made. And just to give this time frame a context, Bill was born in 1950. This experience is happening in either 59 or 1960. So again, we're not familiar with the term crop circles at all at this time, although there are historical documents showing dust devils or whatever. So we do know that they've happened, but, you know, not like we know them today. Sorry, Bill, carry on.
I'm back again. I'll keep going off. It keeps losing contact, and I have to keep phoning you back up. I don't know why.
Okay.
We've got a bit of a problem here, I think. I'm not sure. Sorry, I don't know where you got to because I was off.
So you were just standing up in the crop circle, finding yourself in the crop circle to see where these 2 big, large spheres had disappeared to.
Yeah, and as I did that, I looked up the field and saw something that had landed. And now I didn't see it land. But there was no other way of it coming into the field. There was no way to get into the field. You couldn't drive in. So I imagine it landed, but I didn't see it land. But from the vehicle that I was looking at, it looked to me like some kind of thing that Donald Campbell, I don't know if anybody remembers Donald Campbell in the old days. He was the guy that used to beat the land speed records. Well, the only thing I could think of at that time was the land speed vehicle that he used, because this thing I was looking at was nothing in my imagination. So I was having to make something up in my head what it was, and that's the only thing I could think of. There was 4 people, I call them people, walking from the vehicle. I imagine. I didn't see them come out of the vehicle, but they were walking from that way, so I imagine they came out of it. There was 2, what I might call grown-ups. They were about 6'2", 6'3", blonde. I can't tell you if they're good looking or not. I really didn't look at that. There were 2 youngsters who I believe to have been youngsters that were smaller, probably 4.5 to 5 foot. I was very small. I was only about 3.5 foot at that time, 3.5 to 4 foot at that time. So I took them to be a family. Whether they were or not, I wouldn't know, but that's what I took them to be, a man, woman and 2.
Hey, Martin, it looks like we've lost Bill for a moment again.
Yes.
So what I'll do is, if this keeps happening, I know Bill's story inside out, having spent the last nearly 4 years working with him on it. I don't know whether you're going to try and get him back, are you,
yes,
Martin?
I can try.
And I'll continue with the story. So obviously, as he said, he took this to be a family unit, and they made their way over to him. And he didn't think this was anything really unusual. As he said, he'd seen Flash Gordon at the cinema and believed every word of it. So he's from that sort of open-minded childhood mentality, which is so nice. But they came up to him, and initially they seemed to be a little bit cautious, looking around almost maybe a little bit nervously. And he can't remember the initial conversation or the initial words, but part of what they said in this nervousness was they asked him if he had seen any, now he doesn't know if they said reptiles or reptilians in the area, and he didn't even know what they meant by that, didn't even know what one was, bearing in mind this young boy had no education, didn't know what a reptile was. So he just said, well, no, because he knew the area like the back of his hand, and he hadn't seen anything unusual. So they also then spoke to him. When he asked them where they had come from, they indicated the sky. And he said, oh, are you from God? And they looked at him and said, no, that's a concept on your planet and we can't comment, which I think is incredibly telling. Now, whether that's a little bit of propaganda, I don't know, or whatever, but it was very interesting that they said that to a young child. They also said something along the lines of that they had essentially broken free from their masters who would have made them slaves.
Hello?
Hello, you're back. Great.
There's something very strange going on here. I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay.
I think there's some hacking going on. I'm
Yeah,
quite
quite likely.
sorts of things coming up.
Quite likely.
Yeah, I think I'm being hacked or something.
Yeah. So I've just got to the part, Bill, where I've said about them telling you that about the God business and about the master's business, and then I was just going on to talk about how they told you about the planet being in trouble. So maybe you can pick it up from there.
Yeah, they said to me there's a problem on your planet. I didn't understand, but they said, would you help if you could? And I said, what do you want me to do? As a child, of course I'll help. You know, I don't know what they meant by help, but, and I said, what do you want me to do? And they said, you'll know at the time. Now, I don't know if this is the time that I'm supposed to be doing this. I don't know, because I've kept away from this for 20 years. I kept away from it. The only reason I'm doing this is because I thought I was dead. You know, I thought, this is it, I'm finished. And I need to tell somebody what's happened to me before I go. And that's why I've done this, you know. But that's maybe what they meant. Maybe they meant for me to write a book, maybe, or to be on radio shows like this, or I don't know. So there we are. Are you still there?
Yes. Yeah.
You're still there. I keep losing you. You just keep disappearing. You know.
Okay. So we've so they've asked you that, and then I can't remember if then they asked you straight away if you would like to, you know, go for a ride in the spacecraft, though you didn't know it was a spacecraft at the time.
Oh, sorry, we'd got to the part where I was inside the compartment with the kids when we went off.
No, we hadn't done that. You maybe were saying it, but we didn't hear that, I don't think.
You didn't hear that part?
No.
Where have I got to then, what you heard? Because
so just if you, I think just tell us that, you know, about you going on board the craft and...
Right.
Yeah,
I saw them in the field. They were walking towards me. Did you hear the conversations?
Oh, we've done all that bit. So it's just you now going onto the craft for a ride.
Right, now I go onto the craft, and inside the craft, the first room I went into was a large room. And it was, I can't remember how I sat. I think there was benches, but I'm not sure. I'm not 100%. There was some round balls about 6 to 8 inches round. They were orange, and the one was floating above the one child's head, if they were children, above his head, and the other one was floating somewhere. And I had one in front of me, and I picked it up and put it on my lap. And the one that was the person that was in front of me, I'm calling them people because they look like people to me. He said to me, he said, tell it to go up and down with your mind, just by thinking. And I did, and it did work. I think they did it for me, but it did work anyway. It did go up and down when I said up, down, left, right. But I think they did it. I can't do it now anyway. I've tried it. Are we still there?
Yep, still here.
Oh, you're still there. Sorry. I had a funny thing go up on the screen. You keep going off, you see.
No, you carry on. We'll let you know.
Sorry, I've lost where I got to now because it went off.
So they were working. You were working with some mind control with the spheres, using your mind to mental.
Yeah, I've got it. Yeah, I'm back. You'll have to excuse me because it's a stroke. I've had a stroke. It knocks my head about, and I lose where I am. When we'd done that, the two grown-ups took me into another compartment, and there was a table, like a glass round type table with lights flashing all the way around it. There was it looked like a child's spinning top. I don't know if you know what that is in your country. I'm not sure. A spinning top. It looked like a child's spinning top to me, and then there was like a glass dome over the top of that. Are you still there? Hello?
Yep, I'm still here.
Me too.
Are you still there? Sorry, I keep getting...
Don't worry, you continue.
Yeah, it's no point if
No.
last time I carried on talking and you weren't there. Gone. I wasted the whole conversation for no reason. Sorry, I've lost it. Joanne, pick me up.
So you were talking about the plinth, which had this child's spinning top, which was under a perspex. The top half, it was a sort of perspex-like cake cover.
Yeah, I've got it. I'm back.
With all lights going up and down it.
I got my brain back. I got it back. The thing that was in the middle of it spinning, like a child's spinning top. I was watching it spin. The guy was talking about revolutions, the man. Now, when they spoke to me, here's another one. When they spoke to me as I talk to you with the mouth. But when they looked at each other, they seemed to know what they meant to each other. So I don't think they needed to speak. I think they only spoke to me. Anyway, we're in this room, and there's this spinning top. It's spinning quite fast, slowly, fast, slow. And sometimes when it spins fast, it disappears into thin air. There's nothing there. Then it comes back. Then it spins, and it comes back, and it comes, and it goes, and it comes, and it goes. And then it disappeared completely. Oh, before I tell you this, the woman had said, "Do you want to go for a ride in the ship?" And I said, "Yes, of course." But as this thing was spinning, as it disappeared. When it completely disappeared, the ship took off. So I think that was something to do with the ship, the mechanism of the ship.
Yes, and you were watching the Earth receding, weren't you, through a round window?
Yeah, I did see the Earth disappear through the window to a round, large, round type window. That's all I can say. You know, I couldn't tell you what type of glass it was or anything like that, plastic or. I wouldn't know what they'd made their material from. You know.
No, don't worry about that. We're just hearing this amazing experience of you interacting with the folks, but then you noticed there was a sort of a look of concern between them.
That's right, yeah. As we went out to wherever we went, I don't know where we went, I wouldn't know. As we were going out, the woman looked at the man, and the man looked at the woman. They didn't say anything to each other, but I could see the woman seemed slightly concerned. The man didn't, but the woman seemed slightly concerned. And the woman said to me, "We can't take you any further." And that was it. And then back. And it was back in seconds. I mean, it felt like 1 minute we were up there and the next minute we were back. I saw the Earth come back very, very quickly. I saw the blue. Coming back, I only saw the blue of it. Coming back. I knew it was Earth. I don't know how I knew it was Earth because I was a child, but I just knew it was Earth. And I got back and I walked. I don't remember anything else happening from the time I got back till the time I was walking down the steps of the ship, because there was steps. There was steps up and down the ship, just normal steps. Seemed like to me anyway, just normal steps. As I came down, I turned around and I said to them, "When will I see you again?" They said goodbye, and you know, when will I see you again? And they said, "Just look in the clouds," which I was doing when I first encountered them, if you know what I mean. And that was that encounter. I did lose my bike. I came back to a fence that I put my bike against, and the bike had gone. And I walked around looking for my bike, thinking somebody was having a joke or stolen it or having a joke or what. And I had to walk past the field, and they were there again with my bike, and they gave me my bike back.
Yes, it's very, very strange that. I mean, we don't know why they, took your bike for the moments they did, but I think they also may have brought it back because they sensed your distress because you were running out of time just at that moment to go and pick up your sister from school. So, time was of the essence for you, wasn't it, at that moment?
That's right, yeah, I had to get back home. I hadn't got time to say thank you or how did you get it, or I didn't have time for anything. I just had to get home. I was late.
I think what's really interesting as well, Martin, and Bill, was actually 5 years previously, so 2 years after the 3-year-old event. Mm-hmm. Bill, do you remember that experience you had by the pond in the woods when you were only about 5 years old, and you saw, you think, or we think, it's the same party of people? I don't know if you just want to address that quickly.
I'm not sure it was the same ones.
Okay, but similar anyway.
They were similar because they wore this which in those days tracksuits didn't exist, but they wore the type of tracksuit, like a blue tracksuit. Mm-hmm. But in those days, tracksuits, a whole family wearing tracksuits, that didn't exist in Britain anyway. That didn't.
But you were by a little pond on your tummy, looking at newts with a little net to catch the newts, to look at them and whilst you didn't take them out, you just had a look at them and then put them back.
That's right, yeah.
But some of the other kiddies around had been taking the newts out of the pond and not returning them. So what was interesting is that you weren't at all disturbed by seeing these people because they just looked like ordinary people to you.
Yeah, to me, they were just people. I didn't think anything different about them whatsoever.
But they said to you something quite interesting, I think, in regarding these creatures.
Yeah, they said, the newts are dying and we shouldn't take them, which I didn't anyway. I didn't take them anyway. I didn't take them out with me. I used to. Actually, I didn't touch them because they bloody bite. They bite, I mean, you have to be a bit careful with them. But I used to just hold them in the net, look at them and pop them back in the water. Say hello, Mr. Newt, and pop them back in the water.
But it's interesting because you were only about 5 years old, and as I said, you weren't disturbed by these folks just appearing, because I remember you seeming to say that when you looked up again, from them asking you to tell your friends or the other kids not to take them, they suddenly disappeared as well.
Well, I won't say they disappeared.
They suddenly weren't there.
They could have walked away, but I was busy. Yeah. I was busy trying to get newts as well. At the same time, I spoke to them, and they were walking past the pool. And when I looked up again, they'd gone. That's not saying they disappeared. They just may have just walked away,
Yeah. I tell you what's also interesting is that, which we haven't mentioned for a little while, is that the field that this crop circle occurred in, which I've been to, I did a field trip to have a look at the major sites of Bill's experiences, was actually right backing the house where Robert Plant lived. But also what's interesting is that it was a corn crop, and the farmer never grew a crop there again after that circle event happened. Am I correct?
As far as I know, he never did.
As far as you know, yeah.
As far as I know. I asked my neighbour about it about a year ago, 2 years ago. I was talking to my next door neighbour, who we never got on actually. He was same age as me, but we never got on really. But I asked him about it, and he said that it's a cornfield. Well, I didn't know it was corn until he told me. I didn't know it was maize, corn, whatever. I'm not a farmer, But he didn't say that they'd stopped growing. I just noticed after that I never saw corn again. I noticed that, But yeah. I then started going out into the town instead of the fields. I started going to town, didn't I? So, after these experiences, I had quite a few experiences there, as I've written in the book,
Yes, I mean, it's it wasn't long. I don't know whether it was a week or two, a month or two. My memory's gone a bit foggy on that now, but it wasn't that long that you did indeed encounter a reptilian, because you've had about 3 or 4, maybe even 5 different encounters with different entities.
I'd say 4. I think as many as I can remember is 4. I've got 2. The 2 I don't even know what they look like really. The 2 I know what they look like. The encounter I had with the Nords, they were tall blondes. The Abingdon one, which is the download, which in the book is when I was 44, and it gave me a download of my whole life of abductions. I didn't know until then that I'd been taken all my life. Every time anything happened, I completely forgot it until I was 44. And then the floodgates opened and my brain opened, and I remembered everything from the time I was 3. I can't remember back anything beyond 3.
Yeah, so again, it's very interesting how ET stroke whoever, whatever, manipulates and absolutely manages the mental faculties, emotional body of the humans it interacts with. Because whilst we're saying that Bill had these experiences as a 3-year-old, 5-year-old, 10-year-old, and many, many others in between, including the Reptilians and the Greys and some shadow beings and what have you. He actually had no memory of any of those for 2/3 of his adult life, and it wasn't until he was 44, as he's just mentioned, just to tie that up, that he had what we're calling a download, because it's just like this torrent of information, like some tsunami hit him, split his head open, and told him unequivocally that, you know, he'd had lifelong experiences of an abductee. And this also is interesting because the sort of person that Bill is or was at that time didn't allow for any of this. He didn't believe in this kind of thing and would have thought people like myself, as he said, were complete fruitcakes. So it's interesting. So anyway, Bill, just to give that little bit of context, I don't know if perhaps you want to now just leap forward to the download, which is also a little bit like a near-death experience, because it behaved very much like that, in that this whole lot of information came forward and downloaded. But again, what's interesting is, whilst Bill had all the memories come back in one fell swoop, the one that sort of stayed was what he had talked about just a moment ago, was the Abingdon. And we'll talk about that after the download, Bill, I think, because that is very interesting.
Right. So you want me to...
I think, you know, what would be amazing is if we went to the download, because it's, and then go back to the Abingdon incident, because, well, when you had the download, you saw all the abductions for all your life, but like a cosmic plug hole somewhere, you also began to forget all that you just had downloaded, except the Abingdon incident.
It's very difficult to explain this, so I'll have to try and explain.
Well, that's all right. I think we've said what we need to say about how that happened, but maybe just talk about the download bit now, because you're a gigging musician, long out of the army, and you're actually, very interestingly, also living in an area that is famous for an alleged UFO crash, which was not a million miles from the Berwyn Mountain.
No, I wasn't actually living in that area.
Oh, sorry. Well, nearby.
I used to have to come over. From when I was doing the coast, I used to do parts of the coast in Wales. And the part of the coast that I used to do as what we call a summer season. My summer season was mainly around a place in Wales where I had to come over the Berwyn Mountain to get home. It was about 60 miles from the Berwyn Mountain to home. It was about altogether 120-mile trip. So 60 miles of it, I'd do 60 miles and I'd be at the Berwyn, at a place called Bala in Wales, and the Berwyn Mountain, where there was a crash. I didn't know about the crash though. I didn't believe in any of this. As I was coming over, I had an encounter with something that looked like a orange fried egg. I know it sounds crazy, but it came over the mountain. It was orange and it looked like a fried egg to me. That encounter just left me. I lost 26 miles of road. When I got home, above my house where I was living, was this 300-foot high ice cream cone, pitch black, completely black, with like static electricity going round and round it, like spotting static electricity going round and round in different circles, round it different ways, in different speeds. I watched it for about 15 minutes probably, and I believed it was a projection from a fair, some kind of projection, light projection. So I took that.
This thing was huge though, wasn't it, Bill?
Yeah, it was 300 foot high. It must have been 20, 30 foot at the bottom, going upwards, expanding as it went up into the shape of an ice cream cone. That's the only way I can describe it. I've lost the gist. I got my guitar with me. I always left my equipment, amplifiers, speakers, suitcases in my car, but I always picked my guitar up because it's a very expensive guitar and I didn't want to lose it in any way, as you can imagine. It was actually made by Leo Fender, so you can imagine how old it is and how much it's worth. So I didn't leave that anywhere. It was in my hand. And I walked into the house with it, put it under my son's cot, who'd just been born. He was about 6 to 8 months old, I think. And I sat down in the living room, and as I sat down, 3 alien faces came on the TV screen. I was watching some student programs. I rolled myself a cigarette, poured a brandy, which I normally did, to relax after a gig. And 3 faces came on the TV set. Alien faces, I can only imagine there's no other thing they could have been. And they were the same 3 faces that I saw on my window screen at a place called Abingdon. And that's the memory that came back completely and utterly. I had a complete memory of a full abduction. And that's the only one I've got. I've been abducted so many times, but I haven't got the middle of the abductions, only that one. The rest of them, I know I've been taken and I know I've been brought back, but I don't know what's happened in between. Only on the Abingdon abduction. And that's the one I'll tell you about now. I was driving for a firm. It's a very strange story. I was driving for a firm in a town near where I live, and I was a relief driver. That meant if a job needed doing, I'd just go and do it from an agency when their drivers were off or sick or anything like that. And I took a van full of.
Have we lost Bill again, or are you still?
Hello, I'm back. I'm back. It keeps going off, and
yeah. Okay, we'll carry on. So you're going to deliver a van full of cookers.
And I've got 2 deliveries. One in a town called Southampton on the coast, on the south coast, I think.
Oh, this is interesting. You are having trouble tonight, Bill. Oh, he's literally flicking on and off.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think the information Bill is sharing with us, the elite doesn't want to get out. So it's interesting.
No, well, you haven't heard the half of it, I tell you, because
yeah.
I don't know whether we'll get to the military part yet, but I was having this problem on a previous show, and now it looks like it's Bill having the issue.
Yes. Shall we have a little musical break so that
we can idea, and then we'll try and get Bill back.
All right. Do you
I know he was just trying to ring.
Yes, I understand. Well, I will find something nice for us to listen to. Some synthesizer music, electronic. I like the Orb. Have you heard of the Orb? Bicycles and Tricycles from the UK.
Oh, no, I haven't.
It's interesting music.
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
Yes, well, here is From a Distance.
Forward,
okay, damn it. Watch me sleep.
Omdat heel veel mensen bezig zijn met het onderwerp dat de aarde niet werkelijk een bol is, zoals ons al 500 jaar wordt voorgeschoteld. Daarom hebben wij dit weekend georganiseerd.
En hoe ziet de aarde er dan uit volgens u?
De aarde is een vlakke schijf, omgeven door een ijsmuur, dat is Antarctica. En in het midden zit de Noordpool. En de zon beweegt zich heel vlakbij en de maan over de platte aarde heen.
Wat is een complottheorie?
Een complottheorie is in het leven gebracht door de CIA om mensen die dingen onderzoeken, onderzoeksjournalisten, te ontkrachten en het verhaal ongeloofwaardig te maken. Waardoor de massa niet gelooft wat er werkelijk speelt.
Dus ik ben eigenlijk op school al voorgelogen.
En zo is het helemaal. Maar u denkt misschien ook dat William Shakespeare bestaat. En die heeft ook niet nooit geleefd.
Elvis?
Elvis Presley?
Ja. Volgens mij leeft hij nog.
Er wordt bijvoorbeeld aangegeven dat Lady Di is overleden. Dat is ook niet het geval.
Klopt niet.
Nou, zij leeft op dit moment nog. En daar hebben wij beelden van. De Titanic is ook nooit gezonken. De Titanic voerde in 1945 nog.
De meest bijzondere ding kan ik wel beginnen met de maanlanding natuurlijk. Ze hadden natuurlijk een foto nodig voor de ronde aarde.
Er is nooit een maanlanding geweest?
Absoluut niet, absoluut niet. Nee. Er heeft nooit één mens op de maan gestaan, 100%. Nee.
Als u denkt dat ze in 1969 op de maan geweest zijn, dan bent u in erreur.
De afgelopen Orlando shootings van vorige maand, als je ook daarin gaat verdiepen, ook daar klopt helemaal geen ene moe van.
En de dinosauriërs, zeg maar, die wij onze kinderen ook al leren, ja, beste mensen, die hebben nooit bestaan. Het is een hoax, het is een leugen, het is een zorgvuldig in elkaar gezette bedrog. En dat bedrog heeft te maken dat de evolutietheorie, dat die doorgang moest vinden. Maar ook de evolutietheorie, ja, die is natuurlijk niet juist.
Als je een schatting mag maken, hè, van de dingen die we allemaal aannemen en ons aangeleerd worden, hoeveel procent daarvan ongeveer klopt eigenlijk niet?
99.
Bijna alles klopt niet.
Bijna alles, ja.
We leven in een schijnwereld.
Het is een gecreëerde werkelijkheid die door de elite is bedacht om de mensheid slapende te houden. Ze worden dus met medicatie en met mind control.
Medicatie?
Ja, GMO's, spullen, E-nummers in eten, bepaalde frequenties die uit televisies en radio's komen, worden ze gemindcontrolled, zodat ze niet zelf nadenken en zeker niet in opstand komen.
500 jaar geleden geloofden mensen dat de aarde plat was. Dus waarom zou het nou opeens rond zijn?
Alright, that was a nice interesting piece of music. So, Joanne, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you wonderfully and beautifully and crystal clear.
Excellent.
Is our friend there?
I'm not sure.
Bill?
Let's just see if he's... Bill Brooks. Oh. Well, it may be that I'm trying to drag him into the chat, but it's not happening.
Is he online?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he is.
Maybe you can continue to tell the story about Bill, where he left off, because you know a lot about him. You know him for many years, I understand.
Well, it's really been my association with Bill has been because of a MASH.
Mm-hmm.
And he contacted me because, as I said at the beginning, he'd had a series of heart attacks and strokes.
Mm-hmm.
And he really thought he was dying. Well, he was dying. And I can tell you that, in fact, he did die in 2014 in October after a massive heart attack. And he came back. But listen, I think he's calling me on the phone to try and establish a link. So I'll just take...
You can also call him on Skype. Alright, so Joanne is trying to get a connection with Bill to have a link established so that he can continue to tell his story. By the way, the latest galactic news is that we are in for a wonderful ride, my friends. It's an amazing time to be alive. There's so much happening. I was at the conference today. And I met so many wonderful people there again. And we are getting somewhere. I called the White House yesterday, asking something for disclosure, of course. And I got a good response. Joanne.
Yeah. Hi there. Just trying to get Bill back. I've sent the contact again to you, Martin. So can you try from your side getting
Yes, I will
back?
Gladly do so.
Just, sorry folks, just bear with us a second. And this is becoming, interestingly, more and more constant, that Bill and I are having our calls interrupted as we get further and further down the story.
Yes.
So you can say that this is coincidence if you like. I just think it's perhaps a bit more than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're trying to disrupt. This is the truth coming out. This is important information.
I think it's very interesting because it has implications really for our society and for what's going on. But do you want to let me know, Martin, if you are having any luck getting hold of Bill? Because
I just tried to pull him back into the call. I will try it again. Add people to this call. Bill Brooks, add to call. Let's see what happens. Try it again.
Sorry about this, folks, but we'll get back.
It has happened to me before. When I interviewed people about their contact experience in the past.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'm also got hold of Bill on the...
Oh, Bill Brooks is calling us now.
Great.
So I pick up.
Now again.
Yes, Bill. Hello there. All right, now I'm going...
Sorry, I'm on the phone as well, Martin.
Martin. No worries. I'm going to add Joanne now to the call.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Is Joanne back again? Is she?
I'm
sorry about it. It just keeps going off.
Yeah, I'm pulling her in now. Try it again.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can hear. Yes, clearly. All right. Let's see if this works.
All right.
Hi.
Yes.
Are we back?
Yes, we are both back. Bill is here, I am here, and you
Yay,
are.
Well, let's just see how far we can get with the next part of the story before we're interrupted again. So
I might have another idea, because they are disrupting Bill's internet connection. If Bill, can you type your phone number in Skype, then I will call you on the fixed phone.
I don't know my phone number.
I'll do it.
Okay.
I have it to hand, so I will do that right now. Bear with me a second, and I'll...
Yeah, let's try it for now. Type the number. When Bill falls away again, I will call him on his phone. All right?
Right. Oops, hang on, folks. Sorry about this. I'm just getting hold of the number now. And I will be with you right 1 second. Okay, so the number now is there.
All right, thank you. Bill, you're still here?
Yeah, I'm still with you.
All right, Bill. So, the next time you drop away, I'll call you on the phone, okay?
Okay, on my normal phone?
Yes.
Fixed, yes. Landline.
On your landline. We call it the landline here.
Yeah. Right, yes. On the landline.
Okay, so we'll just continue. Now, I'm getting confused as to where we are. So you're in Abingdon. I mean, you're not in Abingdon. You're. We call it the Abingdon incident, folks. This major memory that Bill has remembered fully, well, more or less fully, about 80% of, because that was the location where it occurred. And Abingdon is a town very near Oxfordshire, Oxford in England, just to give you a heads up as to geography there. So Bill, you were just saying that you were going to deliver to Southampton, and I don't think you said the next place, if you want to pick it up there.
Well, I was doing Southampton, which is on the coast in Britain, and a place near where I live called Evesham. Well, I picked the cookers up at 7:30. Now remember the days, because that's important, the days. 7:30 on Monday morning, and I delivered all day in Southampton. Took me a couple of hours to get there, and I finished delivering probably about 9 o'clock, or that time. So then I started driving towards, just 1 minute. Sorry, my son had got music on, I couldn't hear what I was saying. I was driving, I drove then at about 9 o'clock in the evening. I was driving to Evesham, and I stopped. Instead of going home and sleeping, I slept in the cab of the vehicle, I thought. I pulled down I'll be as quick as I can in how I'm explaining it. I pulled down a dirt track, thinking I'd go to sleep down there, and I'd bought some chips, fish and chips, a supper from what we call a fish and chip shop, and a mug of coffee. And I took them with me, and I pulled down a dirt track with these to eat these and to go to sleep and do Evesham the next morning. As I was pulling down the dirt track, I looked into a field that was in front of me, sort of in front of me to the left. And I saw what I thought was a Christmas tree. Well, as I looked at this Christmas tree, as I was driving towards it, I realised it wasn't the shape of a Christmas tree. It was the shape of a Catherine wheel. I don't know if you know what that means. It's a firework that spins around. It's called a Catherine wheel. And as I pulled next to this field, thinking nothing unusual, as I was eating my supper, I was now on the left-hand side of the vehicle, so the wheel wasn't in the way of me eating. I sat on the left-hand side of the vehicle, and the field was on my left side as well. And as I was sitting there, I was watching lights going round, spotting the field on and off. I saw all the rabbits run away, rabbits running whichever way. But as it was spotting the field, I saw at the bottom of the field a bunch of cows huddled up the corner of the field. I took no notice of this because I just thought farmers are doing something, you know. I'm not a farmer, I wouldn't know. But as I looked again, in the middle of the field, right in the middle of it, was like a triangle of light. And underneath this triangle of light was the cows that were at the bottom of the field were now in the middle of the field, all bunched together in the middle. And one cow from the middle of these was going up into the triangle. Well, I didn't know what it was, and I had, for the life of me, I wouldn't have thought aliens, because I didn't believe in aliens. I thought it was the farmers doing something. This cow disappeared into the light. But as the cow disappeared into the triangle of light, I'd finished eating my supper, and I'd just drank some coffee, and I was lighting a cigarette with a match. And as I struck the match, all the lights went out completely. The triangular light went out completely. Everything seemed to disappear. And I just thought, good, the farmers have gone, I can go to sleep now. But as I was thinking that, my radio, which was fitted under the dashboard on the left-hand side, was going haywire. It was making squelchy noises, very loud noises. Even though radio was very low, it was making loud noises. So I put my head down under the dashboard to try and stop trying to put it back on station. I thought it had wandered off the station. As I lifted my head up, as I was doing the radio, everything went completely light, inside and outside the vehicle. Just completely light, white, a very bright white type light, which was quite blinding really. But as I looked out of the vehicle, as I lifted my head up to see what the light was, I saw on the left-hand side something that looked like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. That's the only way I can describe it. It was a solid object upwards, leaning slightly. And on it was like mirrors, all pointing in different directions. To me, I couldn't really see it properly because I could see everything around me, but I couldn't see this actual thing that I was staring at. I mean, I could see it, but not see it, if you can understand that. I think it was a masking type device, but I'm not an expert in these things.
But there was also some orange molten material that seemed to be dripping down onto the vehicle at some time, wasn't there, Bill, as well?
Yeah, I haven't got there yet, actually.
Sorry, okay.
I hadn't got there yet. As I'm coming up towards I look at that, and then I'm lifting myself up to get back into the driver's seat. I'm lifting myself back up, if you can imagine that. And as I'm lifting myself up, I come in contact, my eyes come into contact with the rear view mirror. At the back of me, I'd got a black, dark window that was at the back of the cab of the van. And at the front I'd got the rear view mirror. As I was looking into the rear view mirror, I thought I saw aliens in the back of the van. I'm calling them aliens now because at that time I didn't know what they would have been. But now I'm calling them aliens. But they weren't actually in the back of the van. As I came up into the driver's seat and sat upright in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel as such, it was 3 alien faces on the screen of the vehicle. As I was looking at these alien faces, I could see behind, there was a wood quite a way away, but also the ship was right in front of me to my left, and at the back of that there was some woods, and I saw what I believe to be aliens coming out of the woods, walking or floating, whichever they were doing, because it was quite a distance, I couldn't see. But I could see what was happening in front of me, and I had a bright orange light. It was very much like jelly. I can only explain it in that way. It would look like a wet light, like wet, jellyish, thick, not like our lights at all. And inside those lights, there were lights coming down like in Star Trek. I don't know if anybody watched Star Trek. There was like tubes of light coming down, and inside these tubes of light were like snowflakes and then turn into jigsaw. But at the same time I was watching this, there seemed to be orange. If anybody worked in a foundry or know what a foundry is, it was like molten metal dropping onto my van, which I found out later on that they couldn't even get it, even spraying the van didn't get rid of it. They had to have the van resprayed, but that was later on in the story. Sorry, I've lost the gist. Can you bring me back in somehow, Joanne?
You are here.
Yes,
You
yes.
are in?
Sorry, it was sorry. My mouse wasn't working there. Yeah, just to say that you were watching, observing this orange and these tubes and the light coming and perhaps coalescing down to actually create one of these greys.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not 100% sure. Thanks, Joanne. I've lost. I lose the gist, as you know. I'm old and I'm.
Well,
I'm
it's part of the stroke, so we forgive you.
I'm on my way out. That's the trouble. As I was watching, the next thing I know, these alien faces, what I call them now, I call them alien faces now. They seem to come through the screen, and they seem to be covered in the glass or something, like it had turned into like plastic or something. But the rest of the screen just looked normal glass, except where they put their heads through. And the one put his head right in front of mine, inches from me, probably touching me, my nose near enough. And the other two got each side of me. And then I went through the screen. And I went up into the ship. And as I was going in, I looked, I was actually, I couldn't move. I was stuck in one position. Whether I walked or floated, I don't know. All I remember knowing is I was going forward. That's all I know. I couldn't see very much at all because I was stiff. I couldn't move. I couldn't move my eyes either. My eyes were straight in front. I could see in front of me, but I couldn't move them. But I could slightly see to the sides. As any soldier will tell you, ex-soldier will tell you, who's been in any kind of conflict, you can see, movement on the sides of your eyes. If you're having to look constantly forward and you need to look sideways as well, you've got a bit of vision and you get used to it. It's something you train yourself to do while you're in that position. So I could see slightly to the sides as well as seen in front of me. Slightly to the sides, I saw what looked like jail cells going upwards. But I also saw something that was moving, like something alive. I couldn't see what it was, but it looked alive. I went past that, and then to my left, to my right, sorry, there was an opening to a room. I don't know what the opening looked like. I think it was big, but I'm not sure. I went into this room and I was lying down. I was laid down. I don't know how, because I can't remember how I lay down. I was lying on a type of bench or bed or something like that. But I still couldn't move my eyes. I was still stuck. My eyes were still transfixed forwards as such. If you can imagine, I'm stiff and so are my eyes. But the next thing I know, I see inside another room that's in front of me, because I could just see inside. I could just see the way I was lying with my eyes. I could just see inside this other room where there was an opening. I won't say it was a door, it was an opening, like an oval opening. And the cow that I'd seen, I believe it was the cow that I saw going into the triangle of light, was laying on a big bench inside that room, and they were working on it. I only saw them for a couple of seconds as far as I know, but they were working on this cow, doing something to it, and then they rolled it out the ship by they raised their hands and the cow just rolled out the ship somehow. I just saw it roll off the bench, and somehow I knew it was dead, and I thought, I'm next. In other words, I'm now going to die. I thought I was going to die. And as soon as I thought that, a grey came over. Now, I didn't see the bodies very well. I only saw the hand. I saw the one hand and I saw the faces on the screen. That's really all I saw of the bodies. I didn't see the bodies well at all. He put his hand on my chest, and his hand had 4 fingers. Well, 4 digits. Maybe a thumb and 3 fingers, or just 4 fingers, no thumb. I don't remember exactly. He put his hand on my chest and said, "No, you're human." In other words, "No, you're not going to die, you're human." And that's what he said to me. Then he went away, and then a few more came back. came round me. The first thing I know, there's a girl sitting on me, in a position that would be sexual, but it wasn't sexual. There was nothing, as far as I know, there was no sexual contact or anything. And then she'd gone, and the next thing I know, I did see behind me some kind of apparatus, some kind of dentist stuff. As I was lying there, I felt up the right side of my nose, on my right side of my nose, a burning sensation. Something was put up there and it was burning. Then I felt something hot go into my ear. Then I saw a drill coming down towards my eye, I believe. It was a drill of some sort. And then I know nothing after that. Next thing I know, I'm either in the same room that has changed, become empty, because it was an empty room, completely empty room, with a video screen type thing just suspended in the middle of the room. And I saw on that, I saw a baby being born, and I saw a war. I think I saw Hitler, but I'm not 100% sure, but I did see a war, the trenches of a war or some kind of war. And then, next thing I know, I'm in another part of the ship, and I'm about to leave it. Now, there was a bench type. I think it was the way I came in, but I'm not 100% sure. It was like a bench, and I was sitting on this bench, and there was a girl who looked Asian, but she was completely blonde. And in between me and her, she was sitting about 6 foot from me, 5 foot from me. In between me and her, there was a round, very large round window structure. It didn't look as though it had any glass in it. But I asked the girl where we were. I said, are we at the bottom of a river or the sea? And she said the sea. Now, I was looking at this round window that didn't seem to have any glass. But the water came in very slightly, like it would if you overfilled a cup. Very much like that. Very slightly came in. Very slightly. And as I was leaving the ship, this is where I was leaving the ship, I remember she asked me a question. I don't remember her question, but I remember my answer. And my answer was, I've got a mother and I've got a wife, and they'll wonder where I am. And that was my answer to whatever question she asked. I don't remember the question. Then I was leaving the ship, and as I was leaving the ship, I floated down. I say floated, it's the only way I can describe coming downwards slowly. I seemed to be coming down slowly, and she seemed to be next to me as we were coming down. And I actually remember forgetting the actual experience. As I was coming down, my mother was fascinated by aliens. I didn't believe in it, she did. She was fascinated by it. And as I was coming down, I thought, wait until I tell my mother about this. And then as soon as I thought that, my next thought was, tell her what? It had completely disappeared. Then it came back again. And I thought, wait until I tell my wife about this. And as soon as I thought that, it disappeared again completely. And that was the last memory I had. Next thing I know, I'm standing next to my van by the driver's door now. I'm by the driver's door. It's lucky I didn't lock the van while I was inside it, because I wouldn't have got back in. And I think I need a pee, because I'm wondering why I'm outside the van, because I don't know why I'm standing there. And I think I must have got out for a pee, which is normal in the morning, as we all know. And I went round the back of the van, and there was the dead cow lying there with pieces cut off its mouth. There was pieces missing from the jaw. The tongue was hanging out. Whatever was left of the tongue was hanging out. There was a hole in the back of it where the kidneys or liver should be. The anus had gone. All the teats. If it was a cow, all the teats had gone. I couldn't tell it was a cow or a bull. You couldn't tell because everything had disappeared off it. So then I think to myself, I better get out of here. So I drive onto the main road, which is a dual carriageway in our country. It's a large road. And the road's empty except for me, really. And on the other side of the road, I see myself. I see a van looking like the van I was in, and myself on the opposite side of the van coming towards myself. Then I do the deliveries in Evesham, and I get back to the firm I'm working for, and they ask me, what have I done with the cookers? The foreman, the manager, foreman, whatever, asked me what I'd done with the cookers, and I said, I've delivered them. He said, you couldn't have done. You only left this morning. And now I'm believing it's Tuesday because I've stayed out the night. I'm believing it's Tuesday. So I'm asking him why he's asking these questions, and he goes into another office, makes a phone call, and he comes back and tells me that I'm still delivering. I'm still delivering cookers in Evesham. Well, someone is still delivering, and they look like me. And I'm believing that they're just trying to stop paying me the night out money. That's all I believed. I didn't think of anything strange. I got home that night, that evening, and my wife's ready to go out. And she said, I'm going out with my sister. You're not supposed to be here tonight. And I said, well, I stayed out last night. She said, no, you didn't. You only left this morning. And I told her she was as crazy as the people I'd just left. They were just as crazy as her. I thought everyone was gone crazy. I even said, is this a leap year or something, you know? Because I couldn't get my head round what was going on. So while my wife was getting ready to go out with her sister, I went into the bathroom, and I normally have to clear my nose out from pollen. I get problems with pollen. And as I'm clearing my nose out, what we now know is an implant came out my nose. And I took it into my wife. It looked like a little 2-2 bullet. And she said, what's that? I said, I don't know, it looked like a 2-2 bullet. And she said, could you have been shot up the nose in Northern Ireland? Which was very funny because I said to her, yeah, I could have been shot up the nose, but probably the top of my head would be missing and some of my brains would be in a mess, you know. But that's about the end of the story, really. I go to the doctors and I go to the dentist the next day, think, oh yeah, I had another implant come out my mouth. And I went to the dentist asking him if I'd lost my implant, and he said no, but why are the two holes drilled in your teeth? And they look like a laser's done them. We haven't got that technology. And he asked me to go back, and I didn't. I said, no, thanks. My filling's still there, because I thought a filling had dropped out. That's what I thought the implant was. Come out. Yeah. I had an implant come out my mouth as well as the nose. But I threw the one away. I threw the one out my mouth away, thinking it was a filling. And the implant I put on top of my shaving
bathroom cabinet.
Cabinet, yeah, on top of it, in a soap dish. And are we still there?
Yes.
Yes, we are here.
Are you still there? I put it on top of a soap dish, and that disappeared that night. And while we were in bed that night, my wife knows nothing about this. My ex-wife now, knows nothing about this at all. I went to go to sleep, and they came back through the garden. I was living in what we call a masonette. It was on the ground floor. It was a ground floor masonette. And they came across the garden. I saw them walk past the window. I heard them shuffling in the bathroom. And the next morning, the implant had gone. And then I went to the dentist after the implant had gone. And the dentist wanted me to go back, and that was about it. But that's about it, really. That's all I can tell in the time we've got, you know, of that story. Hello?
Bill, can you just also, just going back when you were on the ship, how many of the jail cells do you think you saw?
I don't know.
Was there just one level, 2 levels, 3?
I'd say about 5.
Okay, so several layers then.
There was at least 3.
Right.
I couldn't really see properly. It's very difficult to see because I was stuck in one position and I could only see slightly to the left. There was nothing at all to my right as I could see. I could only see slightly to my left.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating, because quite a few people have reported seeing cells or structures that have some other live being in them, and whilst you say you were aware of some movement, you didn't know what that movement belonged to, what kind of a creature being or anything.
No, not at all. I couldn't tell you what any of it was.
Yeah.
But that was the download that made me remember. But the rest of my I say download. The rest of my memories came back slowly, because for the first couple of years, when I had this download of Abingdon, which we've described, I believe that was the only one I'd ever had. The rest of them came trickling back out. They just suddenly dropped on me as I was thinking about, because I wasn't even thinking about other abductions. I didn't believe that I'd ever been abducted before. But as that memory of Abingdon became very, very clear, and I got the whole story in my head by then, the rest started to come back. And then I started to believe I'd gone mentally insane. I really did. For a few years, I thought I'd got a mental problem, and I thought maybe because I'm an ex-soldier and I did something called MK Ultra. I don't know if you know what that is. I don't know if any of your readers know what that is, or listeners. Sorry.
Well, yes. I think most of the listeners know.
They know what that is. Well, I'm not saying it was MK Ultra. I'm saying it was something very similar. If it was MK Ultra, it could have been.
Some kind of mind control programming, we can say for sure anyway.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure about that. And that was just to get me out of trouble in England. I was in trouble in England. I'd only just joined the army when all this happened. And I was in trouble in England for fighting. Not my fault. I didn't start the fight. It was started and people got hurt. So I ended up with the blame for it, even though it was I had nothing to do with it really. I was just defending myself. But I'm the one that got blamed for it. And I was told if I went on this thing, whatever it was.
It's course. It's like a flu vaccination trial. That's what they kind of peddled it as.
Yeah, flu vaccination. Which injections at that time didn't bother me. I wouldn't have one now. But at that time, I didn't know anything about injections as we do now. We know more about them now. So I haven't had one. The only injections I had was in hospital when I had the heart attack, when I died on the heart attack. And they gave me 3 in my stomach. And when they gave them me, I looked, when they gave them me, I couldn't argue. I was too ill to argue. I was near enough comatose. And I saw them put the injections in. And I've had nothing but trouble with infections ever since. I've never had an infection in my life. And I've had nothing but infections for 3 years after those injections. They bypassed my immune system. My immune system has always worked perfectly until those 3 injections in my stomach. So I think other listeners will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I think it's quite interesting also because as a young 18-year-old in the West Midlands with not a lot of opportunities around, and because your dad had been in the army and really was getting fed up with you, you thought you'd perhaps prove yourself to him, and also it was a way out of the trouble. And the army had said to you that if you did go on this flu program, that, you know, they would make sure that you weren't pursued any further. But also, what's really interesting is that Bill had no education, as I said before. So that meant that at this time in his life, he could barely read or write. And he was also dyslexic, which he didn't know about, again, until he was in the army. But what I mean to show by that is that he didn't pass the army entrance exam. And the guy who recruited him said, oh, don't worry, we'll just pass you, you'll soon pick it up. So I'm thinking, personally, this is me now thinking, that the army probably knew somehow something about Bill and his previous abductions, many abductions as a child, which his brother, deceased brother now, witnessed also, and they wanted him for further experimentation, because indeed that really did happen in the army.
Yeah, when we talk about MK Ultra, I mean, we talk about the bookshops that they were taking me to. And as you know, Joanne, they were taking me to bookshops and offering me different books. That's another part of this. The problem is with all everything we're talking about, it's all backwards and forwards. It's very difficult to actually talk about it, because it's when halfway through your life you realise something's been happening all your life. You have to then go backwards and forwards over your life to figure it all out.
I think that the thing to say is also this was a tremendous traumatic shock to Bill to realise, and to, well, not just to realise, to actually know for certain that something he didn't believe in was true. Yeah. And that not only was it true, that he'd been party to it, intimately involved with it, completely unconscious of it until he was 44. And honestly, you imagine if that's you, anybody out there listening, if you've spent 44 years of your life living in one way, and then suddenly something happens and you suddenly have a realization that there's a whole nother part of your life that you never had any idea of. I mean, that absolutely must make you feel that, you know, question your identity, question your sanity, question your ability, question, you know, your mental health, which is all that happened with Bill too. But it was as if Bill had really woken up, because the person he was before, pre-age 44, is a very different person to who he is now, because I think you will say, Bill, won't you, that your awareness and knowledge now, which came with kind of just an instant awareness, as if you were picking up on the matrix of the field of knowledge, that you knew, for example, that the governments knew all about this, you were aware of the big pharma involvement in human experiences, etc. And this was all a big revelation. And to a guy who, you know, enjoyed his beer, enjoyed his women, didn't really think much else about life, this was a massive shock. And I really can't emphasize that too much, and to try and get you to grasp that point. You know, it's a tremendous shock, tremendous.
It's very difficult to realise that when I was 44, I became someone else. It was like becoming another person, completely another person. The person I was before 44, I'm nothing like that person now. I know that sounds very, very strange to understand, but I mean, I had no idea that there was anything. Now, ghosts, yes. I believed in ghosts because I saw my mother when she died. I didn't know she was dead until she stood in front of me. And I walked in the house, and there was a phone call, and mother died an hour ago, when I saw her standing in front of me. So ghosts, I'd seen one or two ghosts. So I did believe in ghosts. But it was no big deal to believe in ghosts, is it? You know, if you believe in UFOs, you're a crank. But you're okay if you believe in ghosts.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I don't know, Martin, if you've got any questions.
Yes, I have a question to Bill. Bill has all those experiences. Have you been able, if you have been fearful, to overcome that fear? And do you have the confidence that there's good out there that's going to help us in the near future?
I'm sorry, but I can't say that anything is good. I don't know. As I say to anyone who asks me any questions about this alien stuff or whatever, I haven't got any answers. None at all. I can only tell you what happened to me. And that's all I can tell you. I can't give you an answer to that question. I haven't got any answers. I'm in the dark as much as you are.
Yes. And Bill, all those experiences, I understand they must have been very intense for you for your whole life. Have you been able, up until the day of today, to overcome any traumas or fear, or are you still having nightmares, or how is
No, I don't have fear. I don't have any fear.
Wonderful, because fear is the opposite of love, and we all need to be loving to each other, especially on this planet right now, because the situation is getting out of hand.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
yes,
you're right. You are completely right about all that.
Yes.
But I can't. I don't know how you feel about all this, because I can't see love coming into this planet for a long, long time. I can't see it. I think there's going to be hate, a lot of hate, because that's the way we're being pushed by something behind the governments. Something behind everything is pushing us into hate and fear and keeping us... Fear is keeping us completely stupid.
Yes, and ignorance, and the mainstream media is playing a big role in setting people up against each other from different nations and religions.
That's right,
etc.
Well, you got the EU now falling to pieces. That's going to fall to pieces. Spain's next; they're going to go.
Yeah.
Now you've got that leaves the big countries: America, China, Russia, the big countries, to pick on the little countries, which divide and rule. That's what it is.
Yes, I know.
Bill, do you mind if I just interject here? Because I don't know if you said this, and excuse me if you have, because I don't remember that I heard it or I said it. But when the Nordics came over to you when you were 10 years old and you went for a ride on their ship, when they asked you if you would be willing to help because the planet was in trouble, and you said, yes, what do you have to do? There was something, a caveat that they gave you to your being willing to help them. Do you want to say what that was?
Oh, yeah, they said that I would be hated by the time I left the planet.
Which is very telling, and the reason I just mention that is because I think, we don't know what they meant by it, but Bill certainly has, certainly through the auspices of the Freemasons, experienced a lot of antagonistic behavior, abuse even, and certainly through the medical world as well. But, so it's like that prophecy has come to pass. And, we wonder why. We don't have the answers as to why. They didn't say why that would happen, but they just said, that was part of helping.
Sorry, Joanne, I nearly butted in there.
No, that's all right.
Personally, I think it's because they knew about the Freemason thing. Because if you remember, just before that, the Freemasons, well, not Freemasons, no, Rosicrucians asked me to join them. Why would they? As a child, I was 7, 8, something like that. Why would they?
Well, this is quite it's only a very short story, that. Why don't you just mention that? Because I think this is fascinating, because it's as if they were priming you for something. So this is a year or more before you met the Nordics at 10 years.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, it could have been quite a normal thing. I don't really know. But as for Rosicrucians, I mean, I didn't know what Rosicrucians were. I don't even know now who they are. Not really. I haven't looked into it. But they took me to the Mormon church, hall, where in fact I used to play at when I came out of the army. I used to play there. with a group. They took me there, and I was a child of about 8, I don't know, 7, 8, something like that. And they were doing, when we weren't playing baseball, which is, they were teaching us baseball, because they were Americans, the Mormons, we were doing silly games, like trying to remember what I've just thought, or how many am I thinking in my head, how much am I thinking, what am I thinking? Things
so
like,
they were exercises in telepathy and also kinetic.
Yeah, trying to get it to move objects with just our minds.
Yeah.
And I actually did it once. I can't do it again, but I did it once. I remember moving. I moved something, but they were round. The things that I moved were round. I can't remember what they were, but I did move them. But I think they might have rolled. I'm not sure. As you can imagine, as a child, you don't really know very much, do you?
Well, you grow up and you learn, and sometimes through hardship and difficult experiences, which you had. Has there been any publications, for example, in Nexus magazine or other radio shows about your experience? Have you shared it on other channels before?
No.
Yes, we have. We've been on some other radio shows, and I've interviewed Bill myself. And this 4 years' work has culminated in a book which is called 44, based on an ex-soldier's true story of lifelong encounters involving alien abduction, men in black, a serial killer, and persecution by the Freemasons. So for me, this isn't just a man's story. This is a social document. This is although we've said it's based on an ex-soldier's true story, it is in fact all correct as far as we know. And because Bill got a little bit nervous as the publication date was coming forward and worried whether he would be subjected to more persecution, we put based on. So if anybody had anything to say, he could say, well, it is based on. But anyway, so that's the reason that it is, we use that term. So it's only been out a short time, but there are some extraordinary experiences involving also the military. We haven't really covered that, and we have very little time left for that. But what I will say is Bill has some incredible firsts that I'd never heard of or come across before. The first was that he was in a crop circle as it was being made. Never ever heard of that one before. I've never ever heard of anybody witnessing a cow being abducted and mutilated before. And, you know, then you have to ask, what the heck were they doing, leaving the cow right by his van and wiping his mind clean, so when he saw the cow, he had no memory of having just seen it aboard the craft. And third, that in his very first weeks in the army, he went through an abduction experience where he had...
Not the first weeks in the army. You keep getting that wrong, Joanne. It's the first week in my regiment.
The first week in the regiment,
yeah,
okay.
First week in the army.
You tell it, then that's fine.
Your first weeks in the army are training.
Okay.
Your first 3 months are training.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I have to pick you up on that one because...
No, that's fine. Well, you can continue with that because that's just really interesting because I think we've got about 10 minutes.
Any ex-soldier would know that in your first few weeks you don't go to your regiment. So the story would be wrong. It'd be like a lie. So what happened was...
It's not a lie, it would be incorrect.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. I don't mean it in that way. The first 3 months is your training period, where you do 3 months intensive training to become a soldier before you go to your regiment, which I did. When I got to my regiment, the regiment was away on what we call practice camp. Every year, you get 6 weeks away doing live firing, That's rockets, missiles, live firing, exercise, and the whole regiment's away except for what they call the rear party, who stay in the regiment. It's like a guard to protect the barracks while you're away. It's called rear party. So I ended up as rear party as I joined the regiment. 15 of us were put on an exercise over a place called Senelaga Ranges. Maybe some of your people who are listening might know where that is. It's in Germany. It's in Sauerland, I think. Sauerland in Germany. I think that's the name of the area. It's called Senelaga Ranges anyway. 15 of us were put on an exercise there. Now, I'm a new soldier. I've just come out of training. I know nothing about the army really at all. So everything that happened to me seemed natural, normal, because I didn't know any different. We put in a position, and the vehicles are spread between two fields. There's a field. The vehicle that I ended up in was in the first field, and the second field was where the rest of the vehicles were. I'll explain that. Me and a guy I'd already just met, who I became friends with, became drinking partners. We were sitting at the end of a track, put on guard duty, which is, there's nothing to guard, it's just fact, that's normal procedure in the army. So we're sitting there for about 2.5 hours, and we realised we haven't been taken over. There was 2 other guys supposed to come and take us over after 2 hours. It's called a 2-hour stag. No one came, but what happened was we saw orange smoke mist, coming towards us. So we go back to the section where all the vehicles are, thinking it's a gas attack, thinking it's a simulated gas attack, not real, simulated. So we go back to tell people to put the gas masks on, and we find an NCO, and he said that's not possible. The exercise is stood down, which means there's no exercise anymore. Finished. Go to sleep. And we thought, that's very nice. Nobody told us. We've been sitting down at the end of a track like a couple of fools. We could have been asleep. So we go to get on top of the vehicle. It's just starting to turn dark. It's not dark, it's not light. We got on top of one of the Saracens to go to sleep. I'm cutting the story short now. And as we get on the Saracens to go to sleep, we light a cigarette. And we see, I always seem to be lighting a cigarette, don't I? Smoke a lot. I see what look like parachutes coming down with flares on the parachutes, like lights on the parachutes, into the next field, where the other guys, most of the section, are in vehicles asleep. But as I'm watching this, as I'm watching these flares come down, there's a bright light appears in the middle of the field. And I see the guys who were asleep, who were fast asleep apparently, walking towards this light maybe in a kind of daze. I'm not sure. So I think I'm gonna, being nosy, I think I'm gonna have a look what's going on. So I start to get down from the vehicle backwards with my back towards a wood that's behind me. And as I'm getting off as I'm just going to get down off the vehicle, the guy that's on top of the vehicle, John, who was at the end of the track with me, said, "Don't go." Well, by the time he'd said "don't go," I was near enough on the ground by the time he was saying this. And as I turn around, I see a man coming towards me with a gun in his hand. Not pointing straight at me this time at the moment, but pointing towards probably my legs. And he's walking towards me, and he's saying, "Walk into the light." Well, I can still hear John saying, "Don't go." So I'm thinking, what do I do? And while I'm thinking, what do I do? He puts the gun against my head, near enough again against my forehead, and it's a large. It looked like a 9mm, if anybody knows what that is, like a Derringer, but it not a Derringer, no, 9mm Beretta. But it looks twice the size of a Beretta. I knew what a Beretta was because I used one in Northern Ireland, but it looked twice the size of a normal Beretta. He loaded it the same. He put his hand on top of it because he loaded it before he pointed it at me. He put his hand on top and split the breech backwards, which is the same as a Beretta. And he pointed towards my head and walked towards the light. Well, that's the last thing I remember till the next morning. Well, well, the next morning I'm standing on parade. There's 15 of us, about 15. I'm not exactly sure of the number. There's 2 rows of us anyway, 2 rows. And there's about 15 of us. And behind the 15 of us, there were 3 men in dark. I forgot to say that they were in dark coveralls. These people came out of the woods. And they all seemed to be blonde as well. Strange, maybe it means nothing. They all seemed to be blonde. There was 3 guys behind us on the parade the next morning, holding pistols, not aiming at us, but in our direction. Not aiming now. The 3 officers that were on parade in front of us were quite high-ranking officers, which for 15 men wouldn't normally happen. But I didn't know that at the time because I was a new soldier. My friend John was nudging my arm and saying, "Do you remember what happened?" And I'm saying, "Nothing happened. What happened? I haven't got a clue what's gone on." He seemed to know what was going on. Then these officers, the main officer, I don't know what he was, I don't know what rank he was, I know they were quite high ranking, said to us, "You must never ever talk about this to anyone else or between yourselves ever again. Never talk about it." At the same time, we were forced at gunpoint to sign another official secrecy act. Even though I'd signed the nuclear one, which is the top one in the army, I had to sign another one, which was, I believe, American, but I'm not 100% sure of that. Because I didn't really take a lot of notice, as I was a new soldier, and this to me must have been, I believed, must have been normal. A couple of weeks later, me and John, the guy I just spoke about, was standing next to me on the parade. We're walking back to camp after going down Senlager, drinking, you know, that's what we did. And we were coming towards a railway track, and all I saw was, I thought, the railway lights flashing. But it wasn't. It wasn't the railway lights flashing because there were no railway lights. The railway had been finished from just after the war, or just before in the war. It was gone. There was not really a railway track there. It was still a railway track, but it wasn't being used at all. It was completely derelict. Everything was derelict there. But I didn't know that at the time. And I thought I saw the lights of the railway track flashing. But it wasn't. And when I looked, I thought I saw someone with a bald head on a bike. Well, I now believe that was an alien. I believe that now, but I didn't at the time. At the time, I'd forgot all about it after again. And I said to John said, "We've been taken again." And I said, "Who's taken us again? What are you talking about?" Because I had no memory at all again. And he said, "We've been taken by aliens again." And I said, "Are you mad?" And he said, "Did you see the lights?" And I saw the flashing lights of the railway track. And he said, "There is no lights on the railway track. It's not a railway track anymore." So when he took me back, he took me backwards, because we'd gone past the railway track by then. He took me backwards to the railway track, and he said, "Now, where are the lights?" And there were no lights, no railway sidings, nothing. All gone, except for the track. That was all there was. And there were not even any gates on the track. Not even any gates. Nothing at all. Nothing what I'd seen. I'd seen the railway track I'd seen the lights, I'd seen everything. But when I got back to it, there were none at all. And that sounds to me, again, like a change in time again. I've had so many time changes like this. It's unbelievable, you know. Any questions on that one? Hello? I've gone again.
Well, this is really an extraordinary story. Bill.
Are you still there? I lost you for a minute there.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm still here. I must tell you that this is really an extraordinary story that you were telling. Is Joanne still there?
Yeah, I am.
All right. So, we have only a couple of minutes left before we have to sign off. Bill, is there anything important that you want to share with humanity? What is the biggest wish you have? What is the biggest desire you have to see for humanity and planet Earth to happen?
No, not really. As I said, my story that I'm telling you is what's actually happened to me. I have no way of knowing why. I don't know anything about aliens. I know nothing about anything. All I know is what I'm telling you happened in front of my eyes. And why it happened to me, I don't know. I don't know whether I'm different to anyone else. I don't feel different, but I do feel different now. I feel different to every other human being on this planet because I believe, it seems to me, it feels like I'm the only person in the world this has ever happened to.
Yes, well, that's what's common with many contactees. I just want to tell you that it's important that you bring your story out. It's being documented, recorded. It will be publicized on YouTube tomorrow, so many people will know about this. So I want to thank Joanne for bringing you in, and I want to thank you yourself, Bill, for your wonderful and amazing story.
And thank you for having us on. Thank you very much.
And Martin as well, for any people in the UK, if you can just put up the number that I left there. It's not Bill's number, of course. It's if I just give it quickly, it's 0795 1752813. That is the ET Newsroom helpline, if you like, as was the AMASH helpline before, so it hasn't changed. And if you put the email contacts, that would be great. I thank you for that. And just together, you know, doing this work and getting the information out there, you know, whatever it is. Bill, as rightly says, he doesn't know what it is, doesn't know what it means, just knows that it did happen to him. Haven't really heard the half of what has happened to this guy. Absolutely extraordinary. And the fact that we've still got him here, you know, I'm absolutely delighted because, as I say, he actually died in early October 2014, only to be resuscitated by an incredible paramedic who just happened to have his defib kit in his car as opposed to the company vehicle, which is why he's still here today. So something about his story, I think, is important. We don't know what that is, but maybe somewhere along the line somebody else will know.
Yes, indeed.
But thank you for what you're doing.
Yes, thank you all. And Joanne, I would like to have a cooperation with you in the future that we can do interviews together.
Yes, that's great.
You can bring anybody up, and we can do the interview together in the future on Saturday evenings at 8 p.m. UK time. You can always bring up a guest, and
there's plenty of folks who are now coming forward to having the courage to speak, because I also will say to everybody, it has taken Bill tremendous courage ultimately to be comfortable in coming forward to speak, and he really was afraid for his and his son's life at one point. And you know, so thank you for everybody for sending just care and love and kindness in Bill's direction, our direction, and to the direction of this field. So, you know, Bill rightly said he doesn't see the love coming through any time quicker, but you know, if we individually just have kindness at the heart, then we just have to get on with our work any way we can.
Exactly. And together we are victorious if we work together to get the truth out. All of humanity, all the people that are listening, contact me or contact Joanne Summerscales for interviews so that we can get the word out. It's important that the truth comes out. And much love to everybody. And know that all is well. And we are going to see some beautiful changes coming right up. We are in the midst of an enormous time of transition. So much love to you, Joanne, and much love to you, Bill. And keep up the good work.
Same to you, Martin.
Yes, thank you very much, Martin.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
So
Thanks
much
to all your
love,
listeners
and
too.
let's
you,
talk
everybody.
soon. Alright, my friends, this was the end of ET First Contact Radio on Finding Voices Radio. Much love to everybody. Good night, good morning, wherever you're listening from. The time for victory is now.